We have a beautiful offering by a friend of ours in the Netherlands. She is a trained operatic singer. She's presently in Italy with her work, and she's singing in all the great opera houses throughout Europe. And we are so blessed to have her with us. Elena Green, thank you so much. Please.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I will be singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, why can't I?
Beautiful. And thank you so much. I hope you could
I'm
see
happy
all
to
the
do it.
smiles. And how appropriate. Do you know that I used to live in the Midwest right next to Kansas where the Wizard of Oz
No,
was?
I did not. I
Yeah, it's a
did not.
perfect song. I
Yeah,
love
you,
it.
you you couldn't have picked a more perfect song because it's so deeply embedded in the
Just picked
collective
it out of
consciousness.
you know where.
You got it. And we're
Yes. Well,
talking
enjoy
about
your.
thank you. Well, and you're most welcome to stay there with your mama if you want to listen in. Otherwise, we know you have probably things to do. But so happy to meet
Yes.
you. And so, like I said, I'm loving your music and thank you so much. It's a great gift and music speaks to the soul in ways that words cannot. And so you're giving this great
Yes.
gift and this vibration into the universe. And it's a beautiful thing that you do. Thank you so much, my dear. God bless.
Thank you so
Much,
much, Nodia, and everyone
much,
have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon or
thank you.
morning or evening,
Much
wherever you are.
success. Much success, dear. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, it's hard to top that, isn't it? So beautiful. But we will ride on the wings of that beautiful song and we will join together in the prayer of Hazrat Inayat Khan, the invocation. Towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. I'm going to say Bismillah, 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 Bismillah. This is a practice that our group has been doing for the last few weeks. We're trying to remind ourselves to begin every activity with Bismillah because it opens the way for God's blessings to flow into this activity, and may it be so. So when Pierre Moynadine wrote and said, please sign up for some classes, I thought, I want to do something close to Independence Day. At least in the United States, it's Independence Day. That was on the 4th, Thursday. And that name, Independence, has such, I believe wholeheartedly in interdependence, but some of you know that I've done work with refugees, and my first husband was a refugee. He was a refugee from Palestine. He was born in Nazareth. And we're still very good friends, and I blessings upon him and his family. He was a lovely being, and we had a beautiful life in the Middle East. But it's something when you're a stateless person. And of course, I was working with Tibetan refugees and trying to help some of them that had been imprisoned in Tibet and escaped with no more than their clothes on their back to try to find freedom. In exile, there was another kind of imprisonment, truly. So some of those people I was able to help. God is great. Wasn't me. I have no power, but God empowers me. And they were able to get U.S. citizenship, which is, for better or for worse, whatever we feel of our political situation, truly is the greatest country in the world. We have great freedoms here. Some of them are getting limited, especially for women, but that's another subject. But the point is that now these individuals have been able, with the safety of the United States, to return to Tibet, which was impossible for them to do before, and to visit their families and to move about freely and safely. And it's such a great gift that our country gives. I do believe in immigration, and I think that my grandparents were all immigrants. So here we are in the United States. So I wanted to talk about that. This class also has to do with a kind of independence and interdependence both. The title of the class is The Hidden Secret Within, and this is a quote by Murshid. I modified it to make it gender neutral, but the point is that the point. So listen to these words. God is within. We are God's instrument. And through us, God is expressed to the external world. Now, originally it read something like, God is within man, man is God's instrument, and through man, God is expressed to the external world. I just merely changed those words. The essence is the same, but if we think of ourselves as the instrument of God, then our prayer has to become mindful in everything that we do. And we are small in comparison to the will of God, so we will to join the will of God so that we may become that. Now, words of the teachings. I want to remind everyone that the audio and video files are always on our website. If you want to subscribe, you can put your contact information in the chat window, and we'll be sure you get added to the list. So audio and video files, the study guide that I'm reading from, plus the list of references that I've drawn the teachings from. It's sort of a knitting together of the subject from different parts of Murshid's teachings. Murshid's words. The words within oneself might confuse some people. Now, I know that's none of us because we're working on the inner world, but we meet people all the time that maybe don't understand that meaning, and if we are working with students, sometimes that is true. So Murshid says, the words within oneself might confuse some people. They might think within oneself means inside one's body, but that is because they're ignorant of the self. He says we have a very poor idea of ourself, and this keeps us in ignorance of our real self. And then he says, if we only knew how large, how wide, how deep, and how high our being is, we would think, act, and feel differently. If we're not conscious of this, we are as small as we think ourselves to be. Krishna Bai and I chatted a little bit before class began, and we were talking about that idea of the vacillation between the small self and the large self, and sometimes how healthy it is really to question oneself in terms of, to pause and sort of question oneself in what the Buddhists would say, what are your intentions, what are your motivations? And so it's good. I know that I try to put myself to task in that way because I think it's very easy for someone that's put in a position to offer these teachings to think there's something more. And really, I always try to remind myself I'm nothing without these teachings, without the power of God. And then God hopefully does work through me. Now, Murshid says this. The mystic knows the value of the word. The mystic knows the value of the word. That word first within oneself. What's that word that is within oneself? What is it? Do we even know it? For the secret of all knowledge that one acquires in the world, whether worldly or spiritual, is the knowledge of the self. For instance, music is played outside oneself, but where is it felt? It's felt within, just like Elena with her beautiful music. We could feel that resonate in the cells of our being. It's almost as if they start to dance to the music. And he says, Murshid says, a good word or a bad word is spoken from outside, but where is it realized? It's realized within. And where is it realized? Because we're going to talk about this a little bit later. Where do you feel that within your own body when someone says something, or you hear something, or you read something, or you see something on the news? Where's that felt within one's body? There's often a contraction, which is maybe a form of withdrawal or protection. But to analyze that as a mystic, to observe it. And Murshid says, then where is the realization of the whole of manifestation and all of creation that is before us in all its aspect? Its realization is within, the hidden treasure within, the interdependence of all things. The word is in itself mystery in every sense. Now, I read that so many times and I kept thinking, that's an awkward phrase. Did I change something by accident? But no, indeed, Murshid says it exactly like that. The word is in itself mystery in every sense, not mysterious or is a mystery. The word in itself is mystery in every sense. I think that's important to think about. What does that mean? And all scriptures have considered the mystery of the word, even compared to all other secrets of life, as the most profound. All scriptures have considered the mystery of the word most profound. In the scriptures that is best known in the Western world, we read, and this is from the first book, Genesis, but it also reappears in the Gospel according to John. So it says, and you know this, you're already saying it in your mind, I'm sure. First there was a word, and the word was God. And then again we read that it was the word which was first, and then came light. These sentences convey to us two things. The first conveys that if anything existed, it is expressed. If we can express what existed, it can only be expressed in the word or the term word. And then when it comes to the second sentence, it explains another phase of the mystery, and that is calling things out of darkness into the light to illuminate them. This means that the original spirit, with a capital S, was in the mystery of the word. And that by the word, the mystery of the spirit was to be found. And Murshid goes on to highlight this subject a bit more. He says, when we come to the Vedantic scriptures, which existed many thousand years ago, then also we realize the same thing. For instance, there's a phrase in Sanskrit, Nada Brahma. I know you probably have all heard this, and it means the mystery of creation was in Nada, and Nada was the word. And Nada is, sometimes when you do the practice Chagall, you get a glimpse of this primordial celestial sound. I have a few students that say they have a ringing in the ear, and I said maybe try to reframe that as Nada Brahma, this primordial sound. You can hear it. In the Quran, one reads the Arabic word kun. The last few months ago, Army Read Circle was working with this kun bismillah. Kun means be, and then we followed it in the name of God, who is mercy and compassion. Kun bismillah. Be and it became. And the one who said be and it became was not a mortal being. The one was and is and will be all the life there is. And I know my Catholicism comes out, but we say that glory be to the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. I always think of the Holy Spirit as feminine dimension. As it was at the beginning, is now, and ever shall be. These are the words Murshid's using here. The one who was, is, and will be. In Tibetan Buddhism, we say, may it begin from beginningless time to endless time. Always is. And so if that is so, then the word was not the mystery of the past, but the word is a continued and everlasting mystery. We need to tune to it. Yesterday at Mass, they were singing, open the ears of my heart so that I will hear that voice coming from within. It's so Sufi, right? These religions, they're all saying the same thing in different ways by different people. But that's what we need to do. Murshid talks about that, opening the ears of the heart. Yeah, so the word is not a past mystery, it's continual and everlasting. And at this time, when we have engaged ourselves, at this time, mind you, in the 1920s, so much so, more so in the 2020s, when we engage ourselves in the material phenomena and have progressed very far compared with the past in industry and in commerce and commercial activities, this aspect of discovering the might, which lies hidden under the word, is still unexplored. The might. What is this might within? It's so important to consider that. So now some of you, when I was reading in the beginning, there was the word, maybe you also have heard it said or studied, in the beginning there was breath. So Murshid says here, life's mystery lies in the breath. It is the continuation of breath and pulsation that keeps the mechanism of the body going. It seems that people of ancient times had a greater knowledge of this mystery than we have today. For what is meant by the lute of Orpheus? Murshid asks. And he says, it's the human body. I was reading earlier today, human is H-U, capital, and then man. So this God-man, who meaning God. So what is this lute of Orpheus? And he says, it means the human body. It is a lute. It is meant to be played upon. Our breath practices, our wazifas, our yoga, our exercise. These are all things that play this lute. Of course, Rumi talks about the reed being torn from the bed is forlorn. Same thing. We have to play it. The breath is what plays it. When the lute is not realized, when it is not understood, when it is not utilized for its proper purpose, then the lute remains without the use for which it was created. Because then it has not fulfilled the purpose for which it was made. And of course, like every instrument that is made, each one has its own, even if you've gone to select an instrument, you play them all to hear their sound, to feel if there's a resonant vibration with you. And this is the same with each one of us. We each have our own notes that we play, and we each have our purpose in this life. If the human body is a lute, then every word we speak, every word we hear has an effect on our body or upon our body, Murshid says. It's not only that it has an effect on the body, but upon the mind. And then he gives us examples. So we, again, want to be mindful of our speech. For instance, if a person is called by the name foolish and repeats it, even if they are wise, they will in time turn foolish. So this is very important. Murshid talks about the grooves or the lines in the mind. And sometimes we repeat things to ourselves that have hurt us. Or maybe things that we've done to hurt others. But the practices are the medicine. The breath practices, and especially the wazifas, what they do is they polish those lines of the mind so that we're not like the needle on a photograph, that we go to that, but it softens it. And we can replace it with this other impression of these sacred words and sacred vibrations that we call into our, to be played on our lute, so to speak. Then he says, the effect of a person's name has a great deal to do with their life, and very often one sees that a person's name has an effect upon their fate and their career. The reason is only that one is so often in the day called by that name, and so you can see the value, when you took initiation and your teacher looked into your soul and felt a vibration that was either already emanating or that needed to be called forth because it was hidden, we were blessed with a name. And those names, whether we use them in public or not, is not important. But my first practice was to say my own name a number of times. And so even doing that can be a good practice for you because, again, we may have many things that are cast upon us, impressions, but we want to tune to that highest note so that our purpose can be realized. Murshid goes on to say, words have power to vibrate through different parts of our body, and we know this when we use these sacred syllables. They activate certain centers. There are words that echo in the heart, and there are other words that echo in the head. And again, there are words that have power over the whole body. By certain words, definite emotions are quickened or calmed. So Yahai, 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 life, life, life. Or Ya Salam. They're different vibrations. I remember Murshid Wali Ali's name was brought up before class, and I remember him saying, for someone that's maybe tending towards depression, that practice Yahai is very good because it energizes them and helps lift them out of that darkness. Likewise, we know Salam can offer peace and to the soul. So there are many things that do this, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I remember when Karuna Mai Ma taught me Om. She says it's not Om, it's A-U-M. And just a little short story to the side. At one point, if you've been to the Dargah, you know that there were these letters that were brass letters that were glued onto the wall in these niches. And the first three were, of course, Salat, Psalm, Salat, Khatum, and then the other three. Then there was Murshid's tomb, and then there was Pir, Nabi, Rasul. And at one point they decided some of the letters were falling off, and so, or maybe people were hitting them off. But I happened to be at the Dargah. I thought I'd go for some quiet time where it's often very quiet, and oh my God, there was someone with a hammer and a chisel knocking all these letters off. And I said, what are you going to do with those letters? And he said, I don't know. So I said, well, I would like to have them. I'll take them back to America. And of course, Karim Bashk, who was a great, Murshid Karim Bashk of the Sufi movement, was a great benefactor and paid for that construction and all that. Everything was out of his pocket. He was very loyal to the message and gave very freely. And so I felt like, oh my gosh, I got to make confession. So the next time I saw Murshid Karim Bashk, I said, those letters I have them now in America. He said, oh, very good, do something with them. And we've kind of carried them when I was there. I didn't bring them with me, but we've taken them to various retreats and everything. But here's what Karuna, I put the larger letters of the prayers, I put them in different containers. And Karunaji, it happened that she was in the hospital at the time, and I took the letters to her, and she took off from Psalm A-U-M, and she says, this is the true Om. And she said, can I have these? And I said, I don't think so. I'd give you anything else, but not these letters. But then she started to sing that sound, and I'm not going to do it justice because she was, like Elena, a beautiful vocalist, singer. But she always said, start with that ah sound, low in the belly. She always likened our bodies to like the tambura, where it has the gourd at the bottom and then the sound rises. So she would say, start with ah. You can do it with me if you want, just to try it. Ah, down in the belly. Ah. We're going to do it 2 more times. And when you get to the do the lips together, and hum. See what it does, okay? I hope you felt that. Could you feel it? It's like everything goes, it's singing. Hello, you don't need anything else. You get your buzz on that way. Just do that practice. It doesn't take much, and you could feel it really tunes you, right? Okay. So now I'm going to I've taken this small section out of the collective interviews of Hazrat Inayat Khan. And what are the collective interviews? I think now they've been published. I think our dear friend Dutch by birth, living in Germany, Wally van der Swan, has made these available to us, the collective interviews in a book. But these are the teachings. They were kind of the secret teachings that Murshid gave to his advanced murids, who were the teachers that were also spreading the message. And this is from a collective interview in the summer of 1925. They were given at summer school when the murids from around the world would gather in Suren. And the title of this piece, I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm going to read a selection. It says, the words of the zikr are, listen, La El, E-L, not Il, La El Laha El Allahu. Now, we hear the zikr in many different ways, and there is no right or wrong way. It's important that we sing it. But the El has a certain quality. And I would like for us to say Il 5 times, and then Il. Again, feel what's happening in your body, okay? So we're going to just do L, 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 excuse me, back, rewind, Apple X for computer people that are Apple people, Apple X, delete. We're going to do Il first. Il, 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 Il. Now we're going to do L. L, 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 L. Tell me, did you feel the difference? Yeah. Okay, so for me, and I don't know, I think probably for you, Il was a little more contracted and L was a little more resonant. Did you feel that? Yeah. Okay, so again, many different traditions, it's dialectical, it's language best, will say Il. It's fine. Murshid Hidayat would always say to me and to others, he felt that Il was a little more jalal, meaning more masculine, more assertive, more, it just had a different vibration. Maybe it has to do with mastery. And yet he said El is Jamal, it's feminine, it's harmonious, it's welcoming, it's generous, it has many other qualities. And so Hazrat Inayat Khan chose to use L instead of il. This also comes out of the Persian tradition. You may be interested in that. So he says this about these words. Could these maybe have something to do with the secret words? Let's think about it and let's explore. The most essential part, he's talking about the zikr, is El, the central word. So La ilaha, then El. So he's talking about that. El Allahu. The most essential part is El, the central word, which is the influence, which has an influence on the solar plexus when rightly done. If wrongly done for years, one practices without any results. But he says if rightly done, one profits in 6 weeks. Well, what do we profit? This is what Murshid says. When one says La ilaha, the breath becomes so vital. There is nothing but God, that sort of surrender. And when El strikes upon the nervous system, joy arises that cannot be dependent on outer things. Every day for 5 minutes, one must say that one word, El. Now, Pir Vilayat, perhaps others heard it. I heard it several times, actually, from him when we were doing retreat with him, the leaders. I was in the Sufi order at the time. And you may know that he had a bad motorcycle accident when he was younger, and he was engaged to a woman. He survived it, but she did not. And you can imagine what a curse that puts upon someone, to feel you're responsible for the death of another person in that way. And he said that he locked himself in a room for 6 weeks and did this practice, and he also listened to Bach, which he loved classical music, and he felt that it elevated him and he was able to go on because his grief was so great and his guilt was so great. So this can help us in times of despair, but it's also very healthy. One more story. I'm sorry, I might be going a little bit longer than I want to today, but I hope you'll stick with me. And some of you've heard this story. We had a beautiful coonhound dog named Leo. He stopped traffic, kind of like Kelsey does now. And at 3 years old, he became quite ill. They couldn't quite figure it out. Our vet was very dedicated to him. She was on all kinds of forms with all kinds of doctors. They were taking blood. They were taking every kind of fluid. And nothing was working to heal him. And we were afraid we'd have to let him go. He wasn't recovering. So Joe and I were working full-time at that time. And so I had an iPod that I could put on a little, Braun machine with, device that was speakers. And so when we were gone all day long, I played the zikr of Inayat Khan. And do you know, the dog recovered and lived to 14. This, I think, is the power of that zikr. So sometimes if you're not feeling well, just in the background, play that music. If you need it, let me know. I have it. It's also, if you look up Sufi Movement Canada, I think they have an audio file you can download there. I don't know what the exact website is, but just look up Sufi Movement Canada. You can write to me. We also have it kind of in a hidden place on our website, so you can look for it there and download it. All right, so this is the power of these words and these melodies. And in our retreats with Pir Vilayat, we use the zikr as part of an alchemical process of going through transformation. And he would have us do this practice, and I'd like for us to do it together. Maybe we'll do it 33 times. I'll count for us. And so we do La ilaha, and then we do El. And El, he said, imagine, and this sounds very harsh, so if it's too harsh for you, it's okay, don't worry about it. But all of this collection of these impressions, they go to the solar system. We feel it in our gut, right? And so he said, think of this as like a hammer. It could be a little hammer, maybe you're just tapping, but he said, think of that as shattering the area which carries those impressions and letting those impressions be released and transformed. And so he would often use this quote of Murshid's, shatter thy ideal on the rock of truth. So shatter our falsehood on the rock of truth, this accumulation of impressions that we believe to be ourselves. Andrew Harvey said, it's like a house of cards, or it's like a house of matches. We need to burn down the scaffolding to see who we really are. Thank you, Scott. Scott in the chat window put the Sufi movement link for you all to grab. You can do that later. All right, so we're going to do this, and we're going to do it with a little force. Do it to your comfort level, okay? And you can let your head come down as if you're looking into that place of your body around the navel area. For women, it's a little bit above the navel area, and for men, it can be a little bit below the navel area. You might want to just touch that area with your hand so that you can concentrate there. And we'll begin. L, 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 L. Yeah, 5 minutes a day, I think we can offer that up. And we can do it in different ways. We can also, you can do it like that. You can try different speeds. You don't have to count. Just make the sound 5 minutes a day. And then Murshid says it is in the center from where every message goes. That's what I was saying. These things that are impressed upon us, we store them there. And, think of it almost like also that solar plexus, like a gong. It's like boom. And the vibration gets released into beautiful sound. I always feel that as we're releasing things, we want to think of transforming them. I know myself, when I look within, sometimes some harsh things of life can come up, and what I do is, as I wish to release them, my visualization, and I don't know why, it was natural, no one told me, but you might have your own. It was like the scattering of beautiful white flowers going out into the universe, so that something that maybe I'm composting becomes something beautiful that's offered, because I don't want to send something negative out there. I don't want anyone else to pick up from it. But if they grab one of those flowers and bring it in, and it's to teach them something, then let it be. Okay, so it is in this center from where every message goes. If you want a connection with a person, this is the connection. In my studies and in my work, I dealt with the art of feng shui. It's the art of placement that articulates various functions in the home or the place of business. Lillian Tu, who's one of the foremost living authorities that lives in Malaysia, it happens that she and I connected because she studies with a teacher that I know in India, Tibetan Buddhist teacher. Not my teacher, but I know this Lama very well. So we've corresponded about things with feng shui, and part of that study too is, and this is very Japanese, it's like I've heard it, I've read it, I've studied it, that Japanese business people, when they are in a conference room, they start to breathe into the solar plexus to connect with each other. It empowers them and it harmonizes them. So think of that's what we're doing. We're becoming empowered by the sound of God, and we're connecting with in the most beautiful way, in an interconnected way, and offering something. So if you want to connect, if you want a connection with a person, this is the connection. Anyone out of rhythm will be put in order. So if we feel out of sorts or out of rhythm, we can use this sound. I mean, you don't have to even do it for 5 minutes. Try 11 minutes. Intone it. When the center is awakened, inspiration comes. Not my will, thy will. I get out of the way and I let what is arising come. And healing becomes easy. So if, like my little doggy, or my big doggy, Leo, the big coonhound, he was healed. He recovered. Tuning a person's life becomes easy. So we can tune our lives with this sound. L, L, L. Think of it as that gong with a beautiful sound. Oh, I have to do another caveat here, and I know some of you know this because you meet with me and we have these groups together, but they did, this was Krunaji, knowledge she shared with me also. She was talking about in puja, you know, they always ring the bell and they do the lights. And also in place of worship, in India, when you enter a temple, you always are ringing a bell or you make a gong. And they did some experiments, scientific experiments in Germany with these two sounds. And they found that what it did is it sent a vibration through the air that eradicated the germs of things like polio and typhoid. So there's the beauty of the sound, but there's the functionality of literally clearing the space. So if you have a bell in your space, again, if you're not feeling well, you have a Tibetan bowl or a bell, ring it, and maybe it can help clear some of that. All right. Back to this teaching from Summer School 2025. Murshid then goes on to say, another word is who. This exercise must be done by drawing from the depth of the being, the center and the intuitive, and then the centers, these centers, all of them, I believe, and the faculties, plural, faculties become clear. I wish I could find the source. I didn't note it down, but a while ago in some of my research, I was researching the word ishq, which you know means passionate love for God, this burning desire to know God. And I read somewhere that in the great assemblies, the dervishes would recite ishq. And there I also read that it was in the 13th century. Maybe someone can find this and we can debate it. You maybe can help me also find that resource. In the 13th century, which you know was kind of a romanticization of Sufism, you know, flowered for purposes of really safety. It had to hide itself in poetry and in art, music. But the sound hu became the sound instead of ishq. And if we say that sound, ishq, 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 versus hu, it's such a different sound. You know, in my travels in Morocco, and especially in Morocco, I noticed that these ornamentations, these heavily carved ornamentations at the tops of columns in the mosque resembled honeycomb. And if you read in the Quran, read the section on the bee, and it talks about the significance of losing ourselves in becoming part of a community. Again, the interconnectedness, the interdependence of things. And so this sound, was one time I was with a group of people, we were off the grid in Greenland, focusing on peace and focusing on clean water, how to save the glaciers. And I was asked to give a practice. And so this is what I gave, because we were so far up in the high tundra, it was mostly rocky. I mean, we were way above the tree line. And there was, I was doing some practices kind of off by myself, and there were these little purple flowers. And I was singing the zikr, and they started to vibrate, and they started to turn their little faces towards me. And I thought, wow, there is a lot of power in that zikr. And then what happened? Bzzz. It was like, how did that bee get up here? There really aren't any flowers or anything. And I thought, it's so meaningful. So my little teaching that I gave was on the bee and the sound hu. And of course, we hear this sound, you know, hu in Alleluia. It's there too, right? There's a lot of sacred words that involve this word hu. It's beautiful. But now let's do this word hu, okay? And first, we're going to do L again. We'll do it 11 times. You might try intoning it because it sends a different vibration through the body. And then we're going to do who. So let's do L. 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 Again, concentrate at the solar plexus. L. 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 It kind of brightens everything, doesn't it? Do you feel that a little bit? Sort of lighter and brighter inside. And now we're going to use the word who. And who is heard as a sound and seen as light. In the beginning there was the word. In the beginning was the sound, and then there was light. It's also said that who is a gender-neutral term for God. So we could also say who. Moinadine Jablonski, I heard him once say that who means God is right here, right now. And invoking that name brings God here, right now. Okay. So let's do who. Who. One who is in search of the mystery of life outside oneself, that person will never find it. For the mystery of life is to be found within. There are the source and the goal, and it is there that if one seeks, one will find. And just back to this notion of the bee and the sound who, I mean, think of it, how these bees work together and make a beautiful hive. There's all kinds of images that I see on the internet of the beautiful names, like sometimes the cone is in the shape of a heart or in foreign letters that mean God. It's just a beautiful miracle of this colony, a colony of people working together. Like we are a collection of students that work together. We do our individual practices, we come together like this, and God willing, there hopes some good comes from this. But this idea that these bees go and collect this nectar from the flowers and make this beautiful honey. You know, I had an aunt. She was my great aunt. My mother was an only child, so she was my great aunt. And she had breast cancer. It was quite severe. And in the healing process, they couldn't get the wound to heal when she was in the hospital. And you know what they brought to put on that wound? Honey. Honey is so healing. So, you know, this is an amazing teaching. And maybe, as I said, just go into the Quran and read that section on the bee. It's beautiful. But it speaks to community, of toiling in service to God, and if we toil enough, we become that sweet nectar that other people can experience and we can offer to them. All right, now Murshid makes a shift here. And Dwin and Sibi, I just want you to know that Murshid means teacher in our tradition. So when we say Murshid, it means teacher, and the body of teachings that came through Hazrat Inayat Khan. He says, what we call intellectual study is a collection of knowledge which has been given to humanity as something to learn. And we think of it as something to depend upon, but that is not all the knowledge. That's only a limited part of knowledge. There's another aspect which can be drawn from the essence of life. And when developed in a person, becomes intuition. That's a very important thing to try to tune into. When there's a still voice that tells you to do something, do it. If it tells you not to, don't. It's very important to kind of tune in. Now, not Peer, he's probably a peer in his own right, but Murshid Saladin, totally forgotten his last name. Someone might pop in, Deborah, maybe you know, but he's the head of the Dervish Healing Order. And he says, start small, testing your intuition. Watch the breath, left and right nostril. Left being receptive means hold or don't. And right is go for it. You know, yeah, this is a yes, this is a no. If it's in both, definitely don't do anything. Wait till the breath shifts. But he would say, I start small. I look at food and I say, should I eat this or should I eat this? And I listen to my breath. First this, test it, then that, test it. Or he said, for me, it started, should I wear the blue shirt or should I wear the white shirt? You know, you just kind of work with these things. It maybe happens all at once, but it maybe happens all at once after practicing and studying for a long period of time too. Okay. He says, but we think of it as something, knowledge again, something to be learned, but we think of it as something to depend upon. But that is not all knowledge. It is only a part of knowledge. There's another aspect which can be drawn from the essence of life. And when developed, in a person, it becomes intuition. It's not the outer learning which causes a person to become a really great person or personality in the world. It's the inward learning that helps them to become that. And I was thinking when I was reading this, well, who are some really great people in the world? Dalai Lama is that, right? Mother Teresa was that. Who in our pop culture would you say is that? I was thinking, of course, we have a dog named Kelsey, and we've named him after the football player Travis Kelce, because when we play fetch, he catches the ball, and instead of bringing it to us, he runs away with it, you know, hopefully over some goal line in his own mind. And then we chase him. We get a lot of exercise with our dog. But I thought, you know, the people always say, well, where's his Taylor? And I was thinking, you know, Taylor Swift, she is a very powerful force in the world. I mean, people are traveling to other countries to see her concerts. She has such a huge following. And yeah, so we want to protect her because great beings sometimes they're not long for the world, so we want to make sure she stays safe. But why is she that way? It's because she speaks from the depths of her own experience. And I think great artists do that. You know, they draw something from within that resonates with people. And so she's really, she has really captivated the world. You know, I was looking on the news, you know, her last concert had Paul McCartney was there, and, you know, I mean, all kinds of people are showing up for her because she's really done something and really spoken, and she's given a voice to women too, I think. It's beautiful. So God bless her. Murshid says, this does not mean, this does not at all mean that outer knowledge is not required. And he says, because outer learning can be a means of expressing better that learning which one gets from within. And we know that sometimes when we're trying to express an experience, a spiritual experience, we'll even say, or I've heard myself say, or others, I can't quite put it into words, but this outer knowledge gives us a vocabulary through which we can express it in a especially if we're sharing with others, there has to be a way, a way to do that. And yet, if anyone has ever learned anything, it is from within that one has learned. Intellectual knowledge has much to do with the brain, while wisdom comes from within the heart. In Tibetan Buddhism, we call this method and wisdom. Okay, so there's like the method is in the engineering and the practices, and then wisdom arises. Okay, and then Murshid says, in wisdom, both head and heart are work. So we want those two things working together. The heart is the throne of wisdom. Wisdom may be called spiritual knowledge, but the best definition of wisdom would be perfect knowledge. By first realizing that intuition exists within oneself, it is perhaps not every person who believes in intuition. And among those who do, not all trust their instincts or their intuition. And Murshid talks, I edited this out, but you might want to go back and read that. He talks about the animals and how by their instinct they also become intuitive. Example, they said before that big tsunami hit some years ago, all the animals disappeared. They couldn't figure it out. The birds were gone, the animals in the trees, they all left. It's because they knew something was happening. There's a man in San Francisco that has been able to predict with greater accuracy when an earthquake's about to occur by looking in the lost and founds to the number of missing animals, because they leave, they get out of it, they move. When we were in Pompeii, there were a lot of street dogs, and when I asked someone about these street dogs, and they would dig into the earth in Pompeii. They have their little dens. And they said, we take very good care of our dogs. As a community, we make sure they have their shots, they get spayed and neutered, because those dogs are the ones, when they get agitated and start to move, we know Vesuvius is active. So we can also, by studying the animals, look at their natural tendencies. There are certain times of day they feed, certain times of days they rest. This is something nice for us to, not nice, but maybe even essential to sort of study for our own rhythm. Okay. It is not perhaps every person who believes in intuition, and among those who do, not all trust it. Not every person is able to catch that first impulse. For the activity of the mind always goes from one thing to another. So, we've heard it said the mind is like a flea jumping from one thing to the next, or a monkey. We want to kind of grab it. What was that first impulse? Because the second one is to not trust sometimes. So catch that first one if you can. So Murshid goes on to say, there's no answer which has not been answered. There's no question which is not being answered somewhere. I'm going to say it again, very important. There's no question that has not been answered somewhere. The answer is nothing but an echo of the question, the full echo. So putting the question out, or putting the question within, however you want to look at it, and listening, what arises, what comes back. Now, sometimes it might come as words, or sometimes there might be something in nature that there's a sign. There's a sign. We receive signs all the time. But are we reading those signs? Excuse me, I have the hiccups today. So think of that. The answer is nothing but an echo of the question, and returning as a full echo. And therefore, we must rise above the confused state of mind, which prevents one from getting the answer from within or from without to every question that arises in our heart. Sometimes it also requires patience. It is what it is. The moment has to be ripe. The moment one's heart is able to answer every question that arises in one's heart, one is already on the path. And so, God willing, may that be us. I'd like to do another practice and then close with another sentence or two. Are you okay to stick with me? Great. All right. So these are two sacred words. The first word is latif, and the second word, and latif, is a little bit long, so it's really Our English language is so lazy, but if we really study the original sound codes of the languages of what they're spoken, it's beautiful. So it's latif with the F emphasized too. Latif. The E sound is emphasized. The second one is kha, Khabir, but pronounce khabir, a little roll of the R. We have to overemphasize it so we can practice it. But it does something, those vibrations. So what's latif? Latif is subtle love which reveals the finest of mysteries. So this is we're trying to get within. We can use latif to do this. To know the quality of latif is to know the subtlest of things that are unknown and not limited to our finite conditioning. So we can get beyond conditioning to explore something deeper. Okay? The subtle mystery of al-Latif is within all things. Think of that Latif is within all things, calling out to us to listen and hear and explore and know. That subtle mystery within all things. And the magnetic centers of the body used in spiritual practices of the Sufis are called latatif. Latatif. You maybe have heard that if you've studied these different levels of what's called the ego or the nafs. So al-Latif is a gentle and refined love. It has sweetness and kindness and tenderness in it. Now, as far as al-Khabir, it's very closely related to the meaning of al-Latif, and they are frequently paired together in the Quran, the holy book, the Quran. And we need to combine these, combine the skillful knowledge of al-Khabir with the refinement of al-Latif to uncover subtle mysteries of knowledge. This is like, I want one more sentence and then I'll say something else. So al-Khabir includes the whole realm of inner knowledge in the depth of insight that penetrates into the most secret buried places of the earth. In Tibetan Buddhism, they say there are these secrets that are revealed in a terma. They're called terma. And some of the very special beings, my teacher was one of them, would go into nature and in crevices would pull out statues from there or ancient scriptures from there to be interpreted. So it's embedded in that tradition, this idea of khabir, this secret buried places in the earth, that these teachings arise, but in our earth too, from those secret places within our earth, our earthly body. And part of the inner meaning of khabir is it involves being tested to get to the depth of the secret. So it's not necessarily we're skipping along and sometimes it's we fall and we get tested and then we learn something. It can be from grief, it can be from illness, it can be from an accident, it can be from something that happens in life. We often think of those as really bad. I did that lecture on I don't know what I called it, but it was for this group about the bad things that have happened in my life that turned out to be great blessings. So anyway, if you want to know, I can find that and send you the link to it. But I think that's the blessing of older age. I won't call myself really old age, but I'm older age for sure. But you see that in life, that those things that have really broken your heart or disappointed you become these great teachings. If we let them teach us, we become transformed, metamorphosized like the little worm that becomes the butterfly. It can happen. You don't let it destroy us. Okay, so we ready? We're going to do it 11 times aloud with the ya prefix before it. It's ya's kind of this door. You knock and it shall be opened. It means, oh, beloved, or oh, divine, and then the name. So Latif is the subtle one and Kabir is the wise one. So we're going to use these two names together. And then we'll whisper and When we whisper, we'll do it like this. We'll breathe in, Latif, breathing in that subtle quality to discover the mysteries within everything. And we'll breathe out, Khabir, revealing the unknown. And then we'll just do 11 silently on the breath, breathing in Latif and out Kabir. Okay, here we go. Let's get on this magic carpet together. Take this journey. Ya Latif, Ya Kabir, 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 Ya Latif, Ya Kabir. Breathing in Latif, out Kabir, Latif, Kabir, Latif, Kabir, Latif, Kabir, Latif, Kabir, Latif, Kabir, Yadi, now silently on the breath, tuning to that vibration, both from within and that's resonating in the sound around us. Tune into that vibration of these words that have been spoken on the lips of so many for thousands upon thousands of years. Breathe it in, breathe it out. Ya Latif, Ya Khabir. A few more words of these teachings by Murshid. He says, in the words of Christ, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. And I'm hearing resonate, knock, and it shall be opened. And Murshid says, if there's a kingdom of God to be found anywhere, it is within us, each of us. And it is therefore in the knowledge of the self that there lies the fullness of life. And those are the ends of Murshid's words, but I have said this before, perhaps to this group, and I think it's important, and it kind of arose naturally as I was studying, that the temple of Apollo is in Delphi, and Delphi is in central Greece, so it's right in the heart of Greece is this temple. And who is Apollo? You all probably know your mythology. He's the god of archery. So getting really to the point, getting within. of music, how we harmonize with each other, of light, illumination, and of prophecy. What we're talking about here, this hidden treasure within, the arts and of healing. So in that temple, on the pediment at the top, is that the right term? That the stone that's inscribed above it, it says in Greek, but the words mean know thyself. It couldn't be any more appropriate than this teaching today. And in our other classes, we're kind of dealing with this subject and looking at it in different facets. So may you be blessed with Ya Latif, Ya Khabir. And may you know the treasure that's really hidden within you. There are many teachings throughout the Sufi message volume. Murshid Hidayat always would say to us, what you concentrate on is what you draw out of yourself or draw near to yourself. So let's concentrate on this. And if we could close the session with the prayer Khatum together. And also I'd like to say that if there's anything of merit that's been created today, from the beautiful music of Elena to any of these words of Murshid, and even my own foibles and my hiccups today, may it generate merit that can benefit so many beings that need it. And we offer it for those living and deceased and for those to come, and all of nature. The prayer Khatum. O thou, who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly cometh from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide. Send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being. Amen. Thank you so much for